I always thought that one day I would be free. Not in some grand romanticized way, but in a simple, ordinary sense. No more controlling phone calls from my mother. No more feeling overlooked. No more exhausting myself trying to prove my worth to a family that never truly saw me. But I haven't been able to do it. Freedom isn't as simple as a door swinging open once you're old enough, smart enough, or successful enough. It has to be taken. And I realized that the day I told my parents I was planning to buy a small house in the suburbs. A house just for me. I'm Rebecca, 31 years old, working in investment analysis. My career is stable, my income is comfortable enough that I don't have to worry about money. But if you ask my family, they would say I'm selfish, cold, and unwilling to help where it really matters. Why? Because I refuse to live according to the plans they set for me. I have an older sister, Melissa, 34. And if I'm the hard-working aunt, she's the dazzling butterfly. Always adored, praised, and favored. She's not wrong for taking advantage of that, but there's something deeply unfair about the fact that I always have to do more just to be acknowledged less. Melissa is married to Derek, a construction manager, and they have 3 kids: Ethan, Lila, 5, and little Max, 2. Their family lives in a cramped apartment, and almost every conversation I have with my parents revolves around how Melissa has it so hard. The kids need more space. Or how your sister is the one who really needs help. To me, parents aren't just the ones who gave birth to you. They're also the ones who decide the hierarchy in the family. And in their eyes, Melissa will always stand above me. Maybe I wouldn't care so much if I weren't the automatic choice whenever the family needed something. Need money? Rebecca will have it. Need someone to babysit? Rebecca can adjust her schedule. Need a listening ear for all of Melissa's problems with zero judgment? Of course, Rebecca. I had grown used to it. But what I couldn't accept was how they treated my life as nothing more than an extension of Melissa's. People might say I'm cold, but I'm not. I just can't live in a cycle where I am always the second choice. So, I made a plan of my own. For the past 7 years, I've been renting a small apartment from the parents of my best friend, Maggie. Because they trusted me, they let me pay half the market price, allowing me to save a significant amount of money. I'm not the type to spend recklessly. If anything, I'm extremely careful with my finances. I cook instead of eating out, take public transportation instead of driving, and hunt for every discount coupon I can find. People often tease me for being stingy, but I don't care. I know what I'm doing. And then that day finally came. The day I opened my savings account, looked at the numbers, and realized I had enough for a down payment on a house. I didn't want a luxurious mansion or a high-end condo. I wanted a place of my own. A place where I could work without interruptions. Where I could enjoy my mornings with a cup of coffee on the porch, and most importantly, a place where no one could suddenly claim it as theirs. And yet, from the moment I started browsing real estate listings, I felt something was terribly wrong. Not because I doubted my decision, but because I knew my family would never accept this. I don't know when I got used to being overlooked. Maybe it was from the moment I learned to compare, from those early years when I realized I was never the center of my family's world. It's not that I wasn't loved. It's that the love always came with conditions. And I was never the one who met those conditions. Melissa was different. She was the perfect child. Since she was little, she always knew how to attract attention, always received the best of what my parents had to give. I never resented her for it. Or at least, I used to think I didn't. But over time, little by little, those tiny cuts burrowed deeper, and the memories turned into scars that wouldn't fade. I remember Christmas when I was 8 years old. Melissa got a genuine American Girl doll, the kind every girl at school dreamed of having. I got a knockoff version, cheaper, with thin hair and eyes that couldn't blink like hers. I asked my mom why, and she just smiled, patting my head as if I should already understand the answer. "They're the same, sweetheart. What's the difference?" But they weren't the same. I realized that the next day, When Melissa brought her doll to school, showing it off to her friends, while mine was quickly forgotten on a shelf. When I was 16, the difference became clearer than ever. On her 16th birthday, Melissa was gifted a brand new Toyota Corolla, wrapped with a giant red bow on the hood. I still remember how excited my parents were as they led her to the driveway, their laughter ringing out as Melissa hugged them, screaming with joy. When I turned 16, I was given a car too. But it was my dad's old Ford, with over 150,000 miles on it. An engine that sometimes stalled in the middle of the road. "It still runs fine," Dad said. "I checked it." I didn't say anything, because I knew that if I complained, all I would get was my mother's disapproving look. "Rebecca, you're always too sensitive." They threw Melissa a lavish birthday party, with friends, a big cake, and even a private DJ. I remember standing at the edge of the yard watching her dance in the middle of her friends, the music blaring, the lights flashing. I didn't know what to call that feeling. Maybe sadness, maybe disappointment, or maybe I had just grown too used to it. When I graduated high school, I had hoped just once to have a moment where I was truly seen. Melissa had a grand graduation party in our backyard, with flowers, balloons, and catered food from an upscale restaurant. And me? I had a simple family dinner at home, with a brief explanation from my mother. "We have to save money, don't we?" And I understood. I understood that there would never be anything just for me. If I wanted something, I had to get it myself. So I did. I threw myself into my studies, applied for scholarships, and took on any part-time job I could find to cover my tuition. I couldn't rely on my parents for support the way Melissa could. When she went to college, my parents paid for everything: her tuition, her rent, her living expenses, and even a monthly allowance. And me? I spent countless nights awake writing essays, applying for every bit of financial aid I could find, calculating every expense to make sure I wouldn't run out of money for food. And through it all, I kept telling myself, "It's okay. I'll take care of myself. I don't need anyone." And I did. Years later, when I landed a job in investment analysis, when I could fully support myself without asking anyone for help, I thought things would change. I thought that once I was successful, my parents would see me differently. But I was wrong. Because in their eyes, I was still the one who had to sacrifice. I just never expected that this time, they would want me to sacrifice my entire future for Melissa. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I had spent nearly a decade preparing for this moment. Every paycheck I earned had a purpose. Every spending decision was carefully calculated. I didn't take extravagant trips. I didn't chase after expensive fashion trends. I didn't waste money on the luxuries that so many people my age took for granted. Because I had a plan. I didn't need a luxury mansion. I didn't need a high-rise apartment in the city. I wanted a small house in the countryside. A peaceful place to work, to rest, and most importantly, a space that was truly mine. When I checked my savings account last week, I knew the time had come. I had gone through hundreds of real estate listings, studied the market, calculated property taxes and all the related costs. And finally, I found the perfect house. A small cottage with a spacious porch, a garden, and an ideal workspace. It was about a 40-minute drive from the city, far enough to enjoy the quiet but still convenient when I needed to commute. I thought this would be the biggest milestone of my life. But what I hadn't anticipated was that my family would never accept this decision. Saturday dinner at my parents' house had always been an unspoken rule. I had never truly looked forward to these gatherings, but I also couldn't skip them. Not because I wanted to be there, but because I knew if I didn't show up, I would be criticized endlessly. I arrived at 5:05 p.m., just 5 minutes late, but I was immediately met with my mother's disapproving look. "Rebecca, you're late again." Her voice was gentle, but the discontent was clear. Melissa and Derek were already there, along with their 3 kids. Lila was running around the living room, Ethan was glued to his iPad, and Max was crying in Melissa's arms. As usual, Melissa looked exhausted but made sure everyone knew it. Oh God, the kids are driving me crazy today. My father sat in his armchair, newspaper in hand, complaining about gas prices and inflation as if his words could change the economy. Derek was chewing on a piece of garlic bread, completely uninterested in anything happening around him. I sat down, trying to engage in the conversation, but when Melissa started talking about how their apartment was too small, how they couldn't keep living in such a cramped space, I realized this wasn't just another family dinner. Rebecca, what about you? My mother turned to me, as if just now remembering I was there. I could have lied. I could have kept quiet about my decision. But in a moment of weakness, I told the truth. I've been looking at houses. I might buy one in the next few months. The room suddenly fell into an eerie silence. Melissa stared at me, her fork frozen mid-air. My father lowered his newspaper. Derek stopped chewing. Even the three kids, as if sensing something unusual, suddenly fell silent. What did you just say? My mother asked, as if she couldn't believe her ears. I'm looking for a house to buy, a small one in the suburbs. The suburbs? Melissa's voice shot out before my mother could react. Why would you do that? Aren't you still living in Maggie's apartment? I've been renting that place for a long time. It's time for me to have a place of my own. I tried to keep my voice calm, but an uneasy feeling was creeping in. No one in the room looked happy. No one congratulated me. They just stared, as if I had just said something completely unacceptable. Rebecca, you can't be serious, my father finally spoke, his voice laced with doubt. Why not? Because it doesn't make sense, my mother cut in. You're still young. Why would you want to live all alone in the suburbs? There's no one around. What if something happens? Mom, I'm not a child anymore. I want a quiet place to live and work. She blinked, then turned to Melissa. What do you think about this? I stiffened. I didn't need Melissa to weigh in on my life. She shrugged, but I caught the calculating look in her eyes. Are you sure, Rebecca? A city apartment would suit you much better. No, I want a small house in the suburbs. The air in the room grew tense even as dinner continued. Conversation went on, but the shift was undeniable. My parents exchanged subtle glances. Melissa kept stealing looks at Derek. And that's when I realized they were plotting something. I didn't know what they had expected from me, but it certainly wasn't this. And then, a thought crossed my mind, a thought that sent a chill down my spine. Had they already made plans for a house I hadn't even bought yet? A week after that tense dinner, I had nearly forgotten the cryptic looks from my parents and Melissa. Work kept me busy, investment analysis projects took up all my time. In the evenings, I kept browsing listings, filtering through real estate options, reviewing tax and mortgage details. I thought everything was going according to plan. I was wrong. On Monday morning, while I was buried in a virtual meeting, my phone buzzed non-stop. My mother's name flashed on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. The moment the meeting ended, my phone rang again. For the third time. What could possibly be so urgent? I answered, barely getting a word out before my mother's excited voice filled the line. Rebecca, you finally picked up. I have amazing news. I found the perfect house for you. I blinked, unease settling in. You found a house for me? Yes, you won't believe it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I sat down, forcing patience. Mom, I didn't ask you to find a house for me. I can do that myself. Don't dismiss it so quickly, Martha. You know, my friend from church just told me about this house and it's too good to pass up. It's spacious, 5 bedrooms, a big backyard, close to a school, even has a play area for kids. I felt my heart sink. Mom, I don't need a house that big. Rebecca, you have to think ahead. One day you'll have a family, children. Why waste your money on some tiny house in the suburbs when you could have a real home? And this one is right by St. Mary's School, just a short walk away. I clenched my teeth. Mom, I already told you, I want a small, quiet house. Not a home built for a big family. Don't be so selfish, Rebecca. Her voice turned sharp instantly. You need to think ahead. This house is the best option, and the owner's looking to sell quickly. If you act fast, you'll get a better deal. I already told Martha you'd be viewing the house on Saturday. I shot up from my chair feeling completely cornered. You did what? I promised Martha. You have no right to make that decision for me. The air suddenly felt stifling, my heartbeat pounded in my ears, and my mother's voice, no longer cheerful, was now filled with disappointment. Rebecca, I only want what's best for you. You're making a huge mistake. I took a deep breath. I'm not buying that house. I hung up before she could say anything else. I thought that was the end of it. I was too naive. Not even 15 minutes later, my phone started buzzing again. Melissa. I sighed but opened the message anyway. Rebecca, you need to check this list ASAP. These are the best houses in the city, close to parks, schools, perfect for a family. Attached were multiple links, all of them to massive, expensive homes, nothing remotely close to what I was looking for. I didn't reply. Another message came in instantly. You need to be more realistic. A small house in the suburbs isn't a good idea. These are a much better investment. More links. When I continued ignoring her, Melissa called me directly. I know you saw my messages. I sighed and decided to pick up. What do you want, Melissa? I'm just trying to help you. You can't be so stubborn. A house in the city is still the best choice. I closed my eyes, trying to stay calm. Melissa, I don't need a big house. I don't want to live in the city. A few seconds of silence stretched between us. Rebecca? Her voice softened, carrying an unsettling undertone. Don't you ever think about family? About me, Derek, the kids? My body tensed. What are you trying to say? The kids really need more space, you know that. If you buy this house, my whole family could move in. We could share the expenses. Like a real family. I felt the blood in my veins turn cold. You're joking, right? Of course not. I set my phone down, my hands tightening into fists. They had planned this all along. Mom hadn't been looking for a house for me. They had been looking for a house for Melissa's family with Mom. They had never actually cared about what I wanted. Determined to put an end to this, I called Amanda Chan, a real estate agent I had already researched. Rebecca, I have a listing that just went up this morning, a small cottage about 40 minutes outside the city, big yard, a greenhouse. I think it's exactly what you're looking for. I didn't hesitate. I want to see it immediately. I spent a part of my youth waiting for my family to acknowledge me. But now, I don't have time to wait anymore. I will decide my own life. I bought the house. After years of saving, planning, and fighting against my family's interference, I finally signed the contract and officially owned a space that belonged only to me. The small cottage, with its wide front porch, charming garden and greenhouse in the backyard, was now mine. Standing in the sunlit living room, looking out at the yard where I would plant vegetables and flowers, I felt something I had never truly experienced before. Freedom. But that joy didn't last long. Because tonight, I would have to face my family. Saturday dinner at my parents' house unfolded as usual. As I stepped inside, no one knew that today would be the day everything changed. Mom was busy in the kitchen. Dad sat in his armchair reading the newspaper, while Melissa and Derek struggled to keep up with their 3 kids. The children ran around the living room, their laughter echoing through the house. As always, I felt like a spectator in my own family, present, but never truly belonging. We sat down, and dinner began as it always did. Dad complained about the economy, Derek grumbled about work, and Melissa talked about the struggles of raising 3 kids in a cramped apartment. I didn't rush to say anything. But when my mother turned to me, her voice filled with anticipation, I knew the moment had come. Rebecca, I talked to Martha and she said the homeowner is waiting for your response. If you agree, we can move forward next week. They still thought I would follow their plan. I set my knife and fork down and looked directly at my mother. Mom, I don't need to see that house anymore. She blinked. What? Rebecca, you can't pass up such a great opportunity. I took a deep breath. I already bought a house. Silence crashed over the room. Melissa froze mid-measure while serving Lila. Derek looked up, and my father slowly lowered his newspaper. I could see my mother's expression shift from shock to anger. "What did you just say?" I kept my voice steady. "I found the house I wanted, and I bought it." All eyes were on me. Not a single one of them looked happy. My father slammed his hand on the table, his voice rising in fury. "Rebecca, you dared to buy a house without telling your family first?" "Dared?" I blinked, feeling a wave of disbelief rise in my chest. "Dad, it's my money, my decision. Why would I need permission?" My mother shook her head, her face turning red. "Do you have any idea how selfish you're being? We had a plan for you. Martha's house was perfect, and now you've gone and done something completely irrational?" I stiffened. "A plan for me?" My eyes swept across the table, and then I noticed something. Melissa wasn't shocked. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even surprised. She just sat there, watching me with an unreadable expression. Wait a minute. A sickening realization crept up my spine. "What exactly was your plan?" My mother let out a long sigh, as if I was the one being difficult. "Rebecca, that house wasn't just for you, it could have been a real home for the family." My stomach twisted into knots. "What family?" Melissa spoke, her voice eerily calm. "Me, Derek, the kids. We've talked about this before. You know our apartment is too small. Your house has enough space for all of us." I froze. "What are you talking about?" Derek cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze. "Rebecca, this is a great opportunity for all of us. If we lived together, we could save on rent, and you'd have your family close by." It felt like a punch to the chest. They never intended for me to live alone. They planned to turn my house into a free home for Melissa. I turned to my mother, but she didn't object. My father remained silent. "You really planned all of this without even asking me?" My mother crossed her arms, her expression filled with disapproval. "Rebecca, you can't be so selfish. We're family. Melissa needs your help." "Help?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You don't want to help me, you just want me to take care of everything." Melissa frowned. "Rebecca, you're overreacting. This is the most logical solution. We're sisters." "I thought you'd be happy to help us." "No! This isn't helping, this is taking advantage." I pushed my chair back and stood up. "None of you care about what I want, you only care about what I can do for this family." A heavy silence settled over the room. Finally my mother spoke, her voice ice cold. "Rebecca, you will regret this decision." I met her gaze head on. "No, Mom. For the first time in my life, I know I won't." And then I walked away, without looking back. The room was suffocatingly silent. I stood there, breathing heavily, feeling like I had been dragged into a nightmare I never chose. My mother shot up from her chair, her face red, her eyes blazing with anger. "Rebecca, do you even hear yourself? Are you really going to turn your back on your family?" My father slammed his hand against the table, making the water glasses tremble. "Stop acting like a selfish child. Family is about supporting each other." I had heard those words my entire life. They talked about family when they forced me to give up things for Melissa as a child. They talked about family when they expected me to sacrifice my dreams so she could have her opportunities. And now they were talking about family, to pressure me into providing free housing for Melissa. I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. "This isn't support, this is manipulation." Melissa let out an exasperated sigh, her voice dripping with frustration. "Rebecca, I don't understand why you're acting like this. You know our situation. The kids don't have enough space, the apartment is too small. You have no idea how hard it is." I looked straight at her, feeling the invisible chains that had bound me for years finally start to break. "You think I don't know? You think I haven't heard you complain about it every single week? But that's your problem, Melissa, not mine." My mother screamed. "Rebecca, how can you say that to your sister?" I couldn't hold back anymore. "Then why does she get to treat me like a personal bank? Why does everyone get to plan my entire life without ever asking me?" My father's voice cut through the air, sharp and thunderous. Because you're the one who can handle it. Because you're the one who doesn't have to struggle like Melissa. That was it? They didn't care what I wanted, they only cared about what I could provide. A bitter laugh escaped me, slicing through the tension in the room. Thank you, Dad. Finally, you said the truth out loud. I took a deep breath, my chest burning from years of suppressed resentment. Let me make this clear for the last time. No one is living in my house. Not Melissa, not Derek, not the kids. No one. Melissa's face filled with panic. Rebecca, don't do this, the kids don't deserve to suffer. I stared at her, my voice razor sharp. The kids are your responsibility. You and Derek had them, not me. Stop acting like I owe you something. This is my life, not a charity fund for your family. My mother's mouth fell open, while my father looked like he was about to explode. You'll regret this, Rebecca. I stepped back, keeping my eyes locked on them. No, I won't. The only thing I regret is not standing up for myself sooner. Then I turned and walked out, leaving behind my mother's angry screams, my father's furious growls, and Melissa's pathetic, fake pleas. I didn't look back. I thought that when I walked out of my parents' house that night, it would be over. I hoped they would finally understand my message, that I was no longer someone they could control. But I was wrong. The storm didn't end that night. It had only just begun. Melissa. Rebecca, you didn't really mean that, did you? You're not actually going to abandon me and the kids. We're family. I didn't respond. 30 minutes later, another message came in. Melissa. Rebecca, please, do you know how long I cried after you left? I can't believe how heartless you're being. I sighed, tossing my phone aside, trying to focus on work, but the messages kept coming. Midday. I've always supported you, Rebecca, and this is how you treat me? Afternoon? You're being so selfish. I can't believe you would be this cruel. By evening, the messages had shifted from pleading to guilt-tripping and blame. Melissa. Mom cried all night. She can't believe you would treat your family like this. How can you sleep at night, knowing the kids don't have a comfortable place to live? Rebecca, you're such a disappointment. I blocked her number. But it didn't stop there. This time it wasn't just Melissa. Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail, but she called again, immediately. Clenching my teeth, I pressed answer. Mom, I'm working. Her voice was filled with tears. Rebecca, you're killing me. I can't believe you would betray your family like this. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm. Mom, I'm not betraying anyone. I'm just living my own life. Your own life? Her voice rang with heartbreak. Do you really think you can live alone without your family? Do you think you'll be happy turning your back on the people who raised you? I gripped the phone tightly. Mom, I don't want to argue about this anymore. No, Rebecca, I can't let you make this mistake. I sighed, my hands shaking with anger. Then don't contact me anymore. I hung up. But she wasn't the only one. An hour later, the relatives started. Aunt Linda. Rebecca, sweetheart, I know you mean well, but you can't do this to your mother. She's sacrificed so much for you. Uncle Mike. Kiddo, family always comes first. Are you really going to abandon Melissa? Susan, Mom's best friend. Your mother is heartbroken, Rebecca. She doesn't deserve this cruelty. I couldn't believe it. I had cut them off, and yet they still found ways to drag me back in. But the worst part wasn't over. 3 days later, I got a message from my former teacher, Miss Peterson, my high school teacher. Rebecca, I always thought you were a kind-hearted girl. But I'm truly disappointed after hearing what happened with your family. Someone as educated as you should understand that family is the most important thing. I felt my chest tighten with fury. They had reached out to my old teacher just to pressure me? I immediately blocked her number. But I knew that wasn't enough. I needed to disappear from their reach entirely. That afternoon I walked straight into a telecommunications store. I want to change my phone number. The employee glanced at me, looking slightly surprised. We can do that, but are you sure? Once we change it, you'll lose all calls and messages from your old number. I didn't hesitate. I'm sure. 10 minutes later, I held a brand new phone number in my hands. one that only my workplace and a trusted few friends would have. As I stepped out of the store, I felt as if a weight had been lifted off my chest. This time, they wouldn't be able to reach me. I knew they wouldn't give up easily. But neither would I. I had finally stood up for myself, and I was never going back. I had disappeared from their reach. Not in a miraculous way, not literally, but enough that they could no longer control me. 3 weeks after changing my phone number, I quietly moved into my new home. No one in my family knew where I was. I left no address, made no announcements on social media, and didn't use any familiar moving services, just in case they tried to track me down. I truly felt free. The first morning I woke up in my new home, I stood by the window and took a deep breath. No more guilt-ridden messages. No more manipulative phone calls. No more burdens I never chose. Only peace. I finally started living the life I had dreamed of for years. I turned the second bedroom into a proper home office, complete with a large wooden desk facing the window, where I could look out at the lush greenery while I worked. My computer, books and notebooks were neatly arranged, just the way I liked it. On weekends I spent time in the garden, planting my first seeds in the soft soil, the cool earth beneath my fingers, the excitement of watching tiny sprouts emerge each day. It all made me feel alive. At night, I sat on the porch, sipping hot tea, listening to the gentle hum of insects in the quiet darkness. No more screaming children, no more suffocating dinners filled with judgment. Just me. And the peace I had fought for. Without my family interfering, my work improved significantly. I could fully concentrate on investment projects without being interrupted by meaningless calls. I started receiving praise from my superiors for my performance, and within 3 months, I was recommended for a promotion. But I didn't stop there. I enrolled in an advanced investment strategy course, something I had always wanted to do but never had time for because I was too busy dealing with my family's problems. I no longer had to worry about their expectations. I no longer had to live according to the plans they had set for me. I was doing everything for myself. Of course, they didn't give up easily. Even though they had no way to contact me directly, my mother and Melissa started using social media as a tool for emotional manipulation. I happened to see one of my mother's Facebook posts through a friend's account. It's heartbreaking to raise a child, love them with all your heart, only for them to one day turn their back on their own family. Some people may be successful in their careers, but without family, are they truly happy? Below it were pity-filled comments from relatives and her friends. Rebecca is so ungrateful, her mother did everything for her. Why are kids today so selfish? I always thought Rebecca was a good girl, but now I'm so disappointed. Melissa wasn't far behind. The kids ask about Aunt Rebecca every day. It's so sad they no longer have someone to rely on. I can't believe some people put themselves above their family. Guilt-tripping, blame, passive-aggressive attacks. But this time, none of it got to me. Because I had realized something important. They weren't angry that I left. They were angry that I took back control of my life. They couldn't accept that I was living without them. They couldn't stand that I was no longer a free resource for them to drain. But that was no longer my problem. One morning, while sipping coffee on my porch, I thought about all the things my parents had told me growing up. They always said they wanted me to be successful. They always taught me to be independent, strong, and have a mind of my own. And now that I had done exactly that, they couldn't accept it. They never truly wanted me to be strong. They only wanted me to be strong in ways that benefited them. But I no longer lived to please them. I am no longer the Rebecca I used to be. The one who always conceded. Always tried to earn their approval. Now I am myself. And I am proud of that. Maybe one day I will find people who truly appreciate me. Maybe it will be genuine friends, a new community, or someone to share my life with. But whether that happens or not, I will be okay. Because I've realized an important truth. The best family is sometimes just yourself, until you find the people who deserve to become your family. And for me, that is enough. Rebecca's story reflects a harsh reality in many families. Favoritism, imposed expectations, and financial exploitation by relatives. Not everyone is born into a family that loves unconditionally, and sometimes, boundaries must be set to protect oneself from manipulation. Living for yourself does not mean being selfish, it is a choice to break free from toxic relationships. True success and independence are not about earning family approval, but about knowing your worth and having the courage to live by it. Despite the disapproval of those who never valued you. What do you think about Rebecca's story? Have you ever faced family pressure or exploitation like this? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more real-life stories about family and life.